Welcome to the Crew 2's current ranking system for its summit events. This plain not gonna work, folks. To begin with, if y'all don't know what the summit is, it's what has been added in the most recent Hot Shots update. And it was also what was added in the Crew 1's Wild Run update. Essentially, it's you do different events that are offered week by week. And however good you do in those events correlate to your overall ranking for the entire summit event. And the higher you are ranked, the more things you get. Whether it's parts for your car, in the Crew 1 actually sometimes will give an entire car. In this particular game it will give things like followers or wheel smoke or things like that. So nonetheless, the better you do, the more rewards you get, so you want to do better. But the way it actually gives out awards is not just, let's say there's 100,000 people in this event, there's about that. You don't get a different reward for finishing, say, 50,000 than you do 40,000, because it is ultimately rewarded by tiers. Even if you do just slightly better, unless you move up an entire tier, it's still the same award. So therefore, the tiers are important, and the tiers for this particular summit in the Crew 2 are actually the same as the Crew 1. It's unranked, bronze, silver, gold, platinum. But the way in which those tiers are decided are a whole heck of a heap different than what is in the Crew 1. And the Crew 1 system, in my opinion, worked fine. Essentially, the Crew 1's system was, let's just give how many people are in this event as an example, even though I'll discuss later that this many people in an event is unrealistic. Let's just say about 101,000. In order to get bronze, which is the minimum amount of rewards you get in the summit, you essentially need to be ranked about 100,000 out of 101,000, which essentially means as long as you participate in an event or not downright terrible in one event, you're pretty much there. So essentially that means you compete and at least attempt to try in one thing. So therefore you get a bit of a reward. And then silver is half of what gold was. So 100,000 people, bronze. 100,000 people get bronze, 50,000 people get silver, and then the pattern continues. 25,000 people get gold, 12,500 people get platinum. And in the Crew 1, that worked because it's not just automatic 12,500 people always get platinum. It goes by how many people are in the event. So if only 10,000 people enter an event, 1,250-ish gets platinum. So it changes per event. Now, the way the Crew 2 does it is, for one, it doesn't actually do it directly by rankings. The rewards are decided by rankings, but what decides the rankings are done by points. And the points are decided, essentially, the better you do in an event, the more points you get, but it's also relative per event, and I don't quite yet understand the system for the points, which that in and of itself is flawed. In my opinion, a casual player should be able to understand how the points work, just to make it a point in which maybe a casual player will want to grind more. But the points are confusing, and here's a pretty straightforward example. Here's a drift event, which I have 130,000 points. Context that don't really mean anything, but in reality, here's the rankings for this particular drift event. As y'all can see, first on my board, I'm doing this one-handed, so this will take a minute. I have to actually get it to the leaderboard. There we go. Okay, there we go. And I am 3,000th in the world. Sorry that took a bit. Doing this one-handed is kind of awkward, but as y'all can see, 30,000th in the world equals 130,000 points. Still not that much context, but here's what will give it more of a reason to look at it. Because this particular event is only 111,000 points, so in theory, I should be ranked lower, correct? Let's find out, folks. Now, I'm ranked 1,700. And to give more context too, here's how many people are in each event. I mean, I'm not a perfect mathematician, but 1,700 to 64,000 people in the event. compared to $3,000 to $69,000 an event. I know, relatively speaking, I've done worse ranking rise for the drift event. Even though yet the drift event, I have more total points. So, that makes no sense whatsoever. Essentially, some events just seem to give more points than others. I don't really know why. And that's not even really the main issue of this video. The main issue of the video is the overall points again decide your ranking. And essentially, in order to get ranked high enough to get the reward you're looking for, you don't have to be ranked a percentage of the total people in the event. You have to be ranked in exact position. In the crew 2, no matter how many people are in an event, you have to be just ranked in general to get bronze, which is actually slightly easier than crew 1. Because in crew 1, you have to at least be like maybe 1% higher than dead last or something. Crew 2, you just compete in any event and do however good and you automatically get something. But every other tier is harder. For now. I'll get into that later. But for now, top 15,000 for silver. 100,000 people in the event. Crew 1, silver, 100,000 people in the event, you be 50,000. This, it's 15,000. Just for one tier above bottom. That seems a bit unfair. And it goes on. It gets more unfair as it goes. 8,000 for gold and 3,000 for platinum. As y'all can see, I'm 2,700 with all of the events done to the best of my abilities, pretty much. I mean, obviously practice makes closer to perfect and all that, but I'll go into that a bit more in detail. And I'm 2,700th. Y'all may be thinking I'm just not all that good, which, I mean, is in the eye of a holder, but I will say this, I am Icon 291, so take that as you may. I'm not showing it here because I have to back out an entire summit, which is annoying too. The summit's not just a seamless transition, it has to actually load into like a menu and stuff, and that's annoying. So I can't show anything other than the summit while on the summit without a load time, but whatever, different video. Essentially, just trust me on this, I'm ranked roughly 15,000th in the world of just overall this, like the icon ranking, which essentially just the more you play the game, the higher that goes up, and there's exploits and all that, but essentially, just 15,000th in the world of all of the players on the PlayStation 4. Puts me still not good enough out of 100,000 players to get 3,000. So, aka, you have to be top 3% in the entire world to even get the top prize. Is that fair? Is that not? Relatively speaking, it's hard to say. Unless you compare it to the crew 1. I mean, just saying it without anything to compare to, there's a debate. But there's no debating the crew 1. It was a lot easier to get platinum, right? Well, yes, for now and for quite a bit of time in the future. But let's look at maybe 3 years down the line. Some of y'all may already know where I'm going with this, but in case you don't, 3 years down the line, just by default, there's going to be a whole heck of a heap of people less playing the game. Let's say 3 years down the line, there's 20,000 people in these events, and that's probably being pretty modest. 20,000 people means, for one, let's just go ahead and say 20,000 people will get bronze. It's not quite that much, but let's just say 20,000 bronze, 10,000 silver, 5,000 gold, 2,500 platinum. In this, 20,000 people, 3,000 people get platinum. So therefore, the less amount of people in the event, the easier it is to medal in the event. That seems unfair in and of itself, too, because who knows if it's even going to be 20,000 people 3 years down the line. Let's give a low estimate and say it's only 5,000 people. And you're guaranteed at least gold by even playing. That's messed up, honestly. Later on in the game, there's going to be no competition whatsoever, and now the competition is so steep, someone like me who has literal 4 or 5 days into the game at this point, still can't do it. And I'll end on this note too. I mean, maybe y'all are thinking just some events I'm not quite good at. But let's just look at my lowest overall points. Again, points ain't the best way of doing it. But anyway, as y'all can see, in general, my average is about slightly over 100,000 per event, with my lowest being 75,000. So let's look at the overall ranking there as a final judgment. First for friends, and about 4,500 in the world out of 24,000. So essentially, that's rounded out to 5,000 out of 25,000 for ease. That's still in the top 20% in the world. Remember how I said essentially you just have to be in the top 12.5% in the world in the Crew 1 to get platinum? Well, this is my worst, and I'm in the top 20%, and I still don't get it. And then there's other events I saw where I'm like 1,700 in the world of about 60,000. That's in like roughly the top 4 or 5% or something. Again, I'm not the best mathematician, so that's probably wrong. But I can do 5 divided by 25 type thing. So essentially what I'm saying is my average probably in the world is about top 6-7%. And doing that in every event gets me top about 2.5% in the world, and then that'll obviously drop the more people compete. You need to be, at this point, top 3% in the world to even get a thing. I have every vehicle for every event essentially maxed out. Maxed out is a relative term, because you can max out in terms of overall points for your car. For an example, drag cars go to 400 points. Mine is at 400 points. But then you can also max out the actual levels for each part on your car, other than points. Like a 400 level drag car with only green parts will be slower in general than a drag car 400 level with all gold parts, because some of those parts, if not all of them, if you want, you can use to have more powerful nitro or whatever it may be. I don't have every gold part for every car, but pretty much for all of these events, my cars are within 1% of completely maxed. Which goes into another bad thing about the Crew 2 as well, is still, even this far into the game, you get parts that are actually lower than what you need to level up your car, even when your car's at pretty much the very max, which is annoying too. Essentially, that means it's random dumb luck to even be able to completely upgrade your car, but that's a different rant for a different time. This particular rant is saying, I've done this much in the game, and I'm doing this good in events with this powerful cars, and I'm still barely even to this level. Which, yes, I mean, first world problems. I'm not quite at the highest level in a video game, but I will say this, too. I played the game for many days, and I put probably about 4 hours into the summit in general. And another thing that worked in the Crew 1's favor is even if you couldn't physically rank up overall in the skill level of these events, like you just couldn't beat your previous time or score, whatever it may be, you could also just run certain things over and over too, like you could just compete in online PvP over and over. That goes by money. Even if you're downright terrible at it and finish last every race, you're still going to go overall up in rankings to extremely crazily high, like top 100 in the world or something, just by competing. This doesn't exist in this particular one, which would be a good thing to put in this particular ranking system, because even though the ranking systems aren't necessarily as fair as they used to be, at least maybe you could compete an event over and over and just slightly go up over time, which would keep you to where you want to be, even if you aren't good enough to improve in the rest by skill. But then yet that doesn't exist in this game that would need it. So overall, the Crew 2 as of now is too hard. Later on, more likely than not, it's going to be too easy. The Crew 1, it was always the same skill level, which again, y'all can judge how fair or not it was, but at least it was consistent. The Crew 2 is inconsistent, and that's overall not going to work. how it can be fixed is essentially just implement what the crew 1 had. Maybe talk a bit for the community and see if they should make it harsher or easier to rank up with bronze, silver, gold, platinum. In my opinion, it should be about the same, because it also makes linear sense too, and it can be calculated. No dumb points involved, all this. Just do it by rankings, and have the rankings be judged by rankings, meaning if you have an average ranking of top 5% in every event, you're probably about top 3% overall rankings, because not everyone does every event. Judge rankings by rankings. How good you ranked in other events, judge how good you ranked in the entire summit event. Instead of how many points you have in other events, judge what your ranking is in the summit. And also, crew 1 had an easy calculation. Divide by 2 to get the next rank up. So ultimately, there's my review of the overall crew 2's summit ranking system not working. The crew 2 is a great game. And the summit was a great addition to an already great game. And again, I rate the game overall about a 9 out of 10. But with this all in all being the main point of the game right now, if it's impossible to actually compete to the point in which you're wanting to compete in the game, because so many people, it's pretty much impossible for as well, and there's just more competition than the rewards are given out, it really gives no need to come back to the game if you know there's no chance of getting to where you want to be in the game. But then later on, so few people are going to come back to the game because they know they can't get to where they want to be. There's going to be so few people left that it's pretty much automatic you're getting a reward. Then there's no competition and no need to compete more. So either you're not coming back to the game at all, or you're barely playing the game because there's no need to play it more. You're already to where you want to be. This system ain't going to work, folks. And this system most definitely ain't worth a yeehaw, despite a game that's very much worth a yeehaw in every other way.